On today's show, I'll go over my thoughts on the Bayou Classic. Nathan Hamer's book is out, and I'll tell you my thoughts so far. And directors cussing out kids? All coming up next on Luke's Band Report. Good evening, afternoon, or whenever you're watching me right now. My name is Jay Luke, the owner and operator of the Passion Is Network and the host of Talk That Talk. I'm also one of the panelists on Blow the Whistle. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Real Talk That Talk or BTW with us on Instagram. You can also pick up any of our merchandise at www.realtalkthattalk.com. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, first things first, Bayou Classic, Battle of the Bands, Bayou Classic, blah, 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 Bayou Classic, whatever, right? One of the biggest things that we all look for throughout the year, Bayou Classic. That is the culmination, the ending, the period to the marching season, and we all look forward to it happening. Yes, we do. And I'm going to tell you that from what I've seen, complete letdown. Now, I'll also say this. It wasn't a letdown because both bands were bad. I'm going to give you my thoughts on this. So I'm going to talk about the Bayou Classic Battle of the Bands, and I'm going to go over and I'm going to talk about the actual Bayou Classic. And when I say that, I'm talking about the halftime performances. So a lot of people were talking about the Bayou Classic was boring. It was a bad showing for Southern, so on and so forth. Here's the truth. The truth of the matter is, and I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, the market is oversaturated. I mean, let's just keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. Grambling was Grambling. From a sound perspective, you're not going to, with Grambling, you're not going to outloud Southern because the instrumentation is just different. It's vastly different, right? So we're not going to talk about that. What I will say is Grambling is Grambling. Grambling didn't sound like any other thing than what I've heard Grambling sound like all year. So it wasn't surprising the way that they sounded. Here's the other thing. Southern is Southern. Southern didn't sound like anything that I heard any different than from the rest of the year. Here's what I will say. I think the market is super saturated. Think about this for a second. At one time, the Bayou Classic was kind of the only Battle of the Bands type, I guess you want to say crank ups kind of thing, crank fest kind of thing, you know, head to head kind of thing that we were getting by and large every year. Whether you were watching on VHS or when YouTube got hot, that's where you were watching it, right? But now, we got National Battle of the Bands, we got Crankfest, we got multiple Battle of the Bands in between. We just got finished with the Boombox Battle of the Bands to turn around to have the Bayou Classic Battle of the Bands. Now, I'm going to add some more context to that. You have that. We're coming up on parade season, which we're going to have battles in and out of the streets, cranking up back and forth, right? During the spring semester, we're going to turn around and then we're going to have summer band cranking up, bands back and forth, just to come back to the fall semester and do it again. I really think that we are just oversaturated with this market. And I'm gonna be for real, when I listened to that battle, there was no contrast. There were no highs and lows. There were no buildups. Either the highs were high or the lows were lows. And what I mean is it was either loud or soft. When either band played soft, they just played soft. There was no dynamic contrast. Big hit sections. It was just kind of there. And when they were trying to play loud, they were just trying to play loud. And I think the market is oversaturated. And this goes back to the question that I asked a long time ago, or maybe a few shows ago. At what point are we going to realize that this thing may not be sustainable? I don't think the Bayou Classic was born because it was boring. I think it was boring because the market is oversaturated. I mean, let's really be honest. This year alone, we've had multiple Battle of the Bands. We've had multiple fifth quarters. How many fifth quarters were we really excited about? Like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing. Were some entertaining? Sure. Again, Alabama and Jackson. And Texas Southern and I can't even remember. Texas Southern and Southern. Entertaining. You can probably throw PV and Southern in there, maybe. Exciting? No. I mean, mildly entertaining? Yes. But see, what's happening too is, and I just got finished having this conversation with somebody, what's also happening is summer band, and this is not a shot at summer band, so I want to make this very clear. But when you have summer band, where anybody can join these bands, and we're talking about trombones, 30, 40 trombones in a band, trumpets, 50, 60 trombones in whatever band, and they're creating these sounds that are just so big, and they're playing these arrangements that are so big, it's almost like that's our high. We get that high, and then during the season, we're looking for that dopamine hit and that high again that we just not gonna get, because no band, not one HBCU band is going to match the equivalent of what any one of those summer bands are going to be from a sound perspective. And so we keep trying to search for that throughout the season. And I don't know, I personally think, this is my personal opinion, that the market is now being oversaturated, and we're not creating anything right now that is giving a varied opinion or varied view on what we see our HBCU programs to be. We have no other option other than crank it up. And I go back and I say it again. The Bayou at one point was the only one that we would see during the year that would get us that dopamine hit, that high that we needed, that crank that we needed in order to make it throughout the year. Because other than that, we just had fifth quarters and stuff like that, right? Now we got multiple Battle of the Bands. We can't use Honda as one of those things, because Honda's was basically field shows. But you throw National Battle of the Bands in there, now you got field shows, and you got the stand thing that they've, incorporated in that. Which I'm not saying that what they're doing is bad, but I am saying, where is the contrast? And I think that is what made it boring. I think that is what made it difficult to be able to sit through and difficult to watch. I don't think that Southern was any different than who they've been all year or in any other time. Now, there is a video that's going out there that's floating around of them playing outside. And their energy was, to me, their energy outside was just as exciting as their energy inside. I think the only difference is the fact that, again, even when they were playing outside, their energy outside was great. But I was just watching it like, oh, all right. Crank up. And I don't know, maybe this view, my view of it, is coming from me just watching it from a YouTube space. And shout out to all the videographers that were out there and that were able to record or all that. So shout out to all you guys. But again, I really think that is, that's from my personal view. Now, maybe y'all being out there gives you all a completely different view from what I'm seeing. Maybe not. Sometimes, just watching people at the Bayou, the energy did not look exciting or the energy did not look high from what I could see. Even when Southern was playing outside and cranking up, You know, I saw a few people getting excited. I saw the band getting excited. Some of the camera members getting excited. I saw Justin out there getting excited. I saw some of the spectators getting excited, but from the most of the people I can see, it wasn't necessarily like a super hype moment. But again, that's from what I could see in that view. I could be massively wrong on that, and if I'm wrong, it's okay. I'm open to the possibility that I'm wrong. So there's nothing wrong with that. All right. So that's my view as far as the Battle of the Bands. You all tell me, what do y'all think about the Battle of the Bands? Did you think it was boring? Did you think it was exciting? Did you think that I'm just missing the mark on that? Y'all tell me in the comments on what you guys think, because I'm really curious about what your thoughts were. As far as the halftime performances, I thought both of them were boring. I really thought both of them were boring. Southern stood still most of the time. They did the salute thing, which, and I'm not saying that the messages they were sending in the salute and having, the brother come out and do all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing that they were doing. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying, just for the halftime presentation itself, it was dull. Fantasia came out, and Fantasia was Fantasia. She ain't kick her shoes off, so I mean, I guess she had a good time. She made the whole performance with her shoes on. But it was Fantasia. But the truth of the matter is, Southern's performance, it was dull. And Grambling is Grambling. I don't know how other way you can say that. Grambling is Grambling. I don't know if this just makes me old. I don't know if this makes me out of touch. I don't know. But what I will say is we got to do something different when it comes to halftime. We've given up on halftime. We really have. And I keep saying, when you have these bigger battles, when you have these bigger shows, you know what? This is what it reminds me of. You know how in the NBA, some of your stars, your stars on certain teams, so on and so forth, they'll get ejected or load management, so they got to take these games off, but people pay to come and see them, but then they don't play. And then people are like, well, the people paid the money to come and see you play, right? It's kind of the same way I feel about when it comes to halftime, right? People expect an exciting product, top to bottom. And the only time when you give me a good product is when you're in the stands. But what if it's a situation like this where you get a battle on the Friday night before, but then on Saturday you can barely play anyway? Then all you got left is the halftime. And if your halftime is subpar, then are you really giving the fans what they want to see? I mean, let's be real. Bayou Classic, yes. From a Grambling and Southern perspective, everybody far and wide comes to be able to see them, right? Because historically it's been there for years. But guess what? The people come to see too, the bands. And they come to see them be the best version of themselves. And when you give a lackluster halftime, is that really the best version? You all tell me. Again, I could be wrong, and I'm open to the possibility that I'm wrong. And I understand too, from a director's perspective, it's been a long year. But the way it's looking, isn't every year going to be a long year? So I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, you guys tell me in the comments what you guys feel, what you all thought about Bayou Classic. Tell me about how you felt about it, from the halftime performance to the Battle of the Bands. I also know that there was the high school Battle of the Bands that was before. I haven't watched it yet, but congratulations to those high school kids, those students that were able to perform for that and be into that space and in that arena. Congratulations to you guys. I'm glad that you guys were able to be into that on that stage. Congratulations to Sigma Gamma Rho and my brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha for winning the step show, the Bayou Classic step show for that night. So with that being said, let's move on forward. Juked is out, and I am excited. One of the things that I'm truly excited about is the fact that Juked is doing exactly what I hoped it would do. It's not necessarily a book about mess, not necessarily. Now, mind you, I'm only on chapter 22. And I have not made it to the end yet, but so far, it has been a very, very good storytelling about what it's like to be inside of a seat, a band director seat, unprepared, and not given the knowledge and the information that you need in order to be successful. And some of the hurdles that you run into when dealing or being placed in this position. And you know what? I really enjoy it. I'm really enjoying it. And the great thing is tonight I've gotten the opportunity, and yes, guys, if you're watching me right now, I actually filmed this yesterday night. So sorry. Usually I would film it on the day, but I had to go ahead and pop the camera and do it now. Anyway, but shout out to Nathan Hamer. I was able to get in with him on the live and just be able to ask him a few questions about his thoughts about, being in that position, what his thought process was, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't checked out his live, go check out his live and look at some of the questions I asked. And if you did check out his live, guys, listen to this. There are certain words that I'm just not going to use right now, but I will say this. There are a lot of people who were in there that really appreciated the questions that I was asking. Why? Because there are a lot of us who are in spaces that need those questions answered. So just because we're not talking about all the juice and the tea and all that kind of stuff, which I think is so lame to use, but just because we're not talking about that does not make the information less valuable. So sometimes we got to learn to be quiet and just listen and enjoy the conversation for what it is and take in the information that we may not have known. With that being said, I appreciate you, Brother Hamer, for letting me in and just being able to ask those questions. I also would really like to extend you coming on to Talk That Talk and just being able to have that conversation further. So if you are watching this, man, I would really like for you to come in. If you want to be able to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Real Talk That Talk on Instagram. Yeah, absolutely, man. I really enjoy the conversation, and I'm really enjoying your book. But with that being said, though, I think Juke is a really good book, and I'm enjoying reading it. I'm enjoying everything that I read about it. Have y'all read it? If you are watching right now, and if you've read it, if you started reading it, if you're looking forward to reading it, tell me what chapter you're on and some of the thoughts that you have just from reading it. I will tell you this from my personal opinion. Some of the things that he's discussed in there, I've seen myself. I've either been involved or a part of and or seen it and or talk to someone who has been through the same things. So the things that he's going through, or the things that he talks about specifically beginning in chapter 1 to chapter 22 to where I've been, not all of them, some of them things, Sharon, that he talked about. I ain't talking about that stuff. I'm talking about some of the business stuff, and the things that he talks about, his fiduciary responsibilities, things like that. Some of the hurdles that he had to run into, some of the roadblocks are things that I have seen, experienced, or heard about as a director, as a band director, and other people from that band director space. So I would definitely like to say, guys, if you haven't read it, go read it. And also, man, it's really causing me to go back and look at a lot of things and reevaluate some of the things that he talks about. I don't want to give too much away if you haven't read the book, but I will say this. There was one moment that he does talk about with Alabama State that I had to go and check for myself, because I'm like, well, if you put it out there, I at least want to be able to see if it's true. And sure enough, it's true. It is definitely true. And then I think this is around chapter maybe 18 or 20, and I'm, again, not going to tell you everything. You got to go read the book. But he does talk about one of the conversations that he was having while he was at Alabama State, and then he just happened to walk off from said person that he was having the conversation with. And as I was watching that Alabama State game in that particular time, you do see that actual thing happening. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good book. I'm going to try to finish it sometime this week, and I'm probably going to talk about it. But again, Brother Hamer, if you get the opportunity to watch this, again, appreciate you for letting me on your live, and I would love to have you on the show to just talk about the book, and also just from what the conversation that you had with me, business life and so on and so forth, and just talk about some of the roadblocks that you've went through, and then the possible ways to get out of it, and then also discuss some things that I saw in your book that you're comfortable to discuss. But yeah, go pick it up. Really good book. That's all I got to say about Jude. On to the final topic. I don't have it anymore, at least I don't think. There's a video that is circulating of a director telling the student to get the F out of the band room. It looked like he threw a stand or tossed a stand down, so on and so forth. And I want to talk about that for a second. And I might extend this to Real Talk That Talk. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start it. And if I feel the need to extend it to Real Talk That Talk, I will. So there's a couple of things, or a couple of thought processes that I have about this. And I want everybody to kind of buckle down and just kind of listen. First of all, before I get to this point, if you've seen the video, go ahead and put it in the chat. Tell me if you've seen the video. If you have not seen the video, it's interesting. But here we go. I find it massively convenient as an educator. This is from an educator perspective now. I find it massively convenient that most of these cameras start rolling right at the point of confrontation. Like, why aren't the cameras rolling prior to the confrontation? Like, why is it only rolling at the point to when the quote unquote scandalous thing happens, right? But we don't ever look at the buildup. So that's my first thing. But the next thing is, what is it that would cause any educator, not just him, any director, any educator, to get to that point? In my years of teaching, I can say this. And let me preface this by saying, towards the latter year of my teaching, I was not like that, right? But I have been angry with students before. I've never put my hands on a student. I'm gonna be very, very clear with that. But I have been angry with students before, and I've been aggressive with students. But here's the thing that I have to say. I've taught drum corps before for 3 years. I've taught in urban areas, and I've taught in low socioeconomic areas, and I've taught in suburban areas. I've taught a lot of kids that didn't look like me. I ain't just talking about Hispanic kids. You know, the one thing I never had to do to them? Lash out like that. And I still got them to produce the way that I needed them to. Now, again, I don't know what led up to him getting to that point. And so I'm not going to comment on him. What I will say is this: as a people, as chocolate folk, I will say that our students deserve better. Again, not talking about him specifically, because I don't know what led up to that. But if me as a chocolate person can step in front of other people that don't look like me, and I don't have to act that way to get them to produce, then that means that doesn't our kids deserve just as good a treatment? I understand that a lot of our kids sometimes come from broken homes, broken backgrounds, and truthfully, a lot of parents that actually talk to them like that. But that doesn't necessarily make it right. And I had to learn that from stepping inside of another space. That cannot be the only way that we're able to get our message across. Now, I can also contradict myself because, hey, it's my show. I'm also contradict myself in saying the fact that, again, I don't know what led up to that. The young man or young person, I don't know who they were talking to, could have been antagonizing said person, could have been antagonizing the director. The director probably could have done everything in their power to try to restrain themselves, to try to direct and redirect. And the student could have been massively disrespectful. There is that. And there's always that argument about you should be practicing restraint. Okay. At what point does that restraint end? Because you're still human at the end of the day, right? You get emotional, you get frustrated. And if you're the teacher of record or the leader in that particular situation, you will want, or you expect for the students to follow and respect the leader. But if that respect is gone, what do? Now, I'm not necessarily saying cussing a kid out is necessarily the best course of action. Please understand, I'm not saying that. And I want to make sure I make that very clear. I'm not saying that cussing a kid out is the best form of action, but I am saying that what is the next step? Y'all tell me. What do you all think the next step is? Because here's a scenario. If I don't take action and I'm not talking about him, I'm not talking about me specifically, I'm just using this as an example. If there's no action taken, then have you lost respect for the rest of the kids that's in that room? Case in point. I asked a student to leave, student refused to leave. I asked the student to leave again. We're talking about a university here. Student refused to leave. Now, I can call the law, get the law involved, because ain't no principal at a HBCU. But now we have slowed down rehearsal time. And now we are now behind because of one person. If I say nothing, then the rest of the students are like, well, if person A can do that, then person B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and so on and so forth can do that. So I think that, in my personal opinion, maybe we need I'm not going to say anger management courses. I would say diffusion courses on how to diffuse a situation. Maybe that's what it is. But here's another school of thought. Does the accountability fall on the kids too? We want to hold the director accountable, absolutely, because why? He's the teacher of record. He's the leader there. From a university perspective, the student is an adult too. There's a level of accountability that should be there. Or should it? I don't know. You all tell me in the comments. There are so many variables to this. And again, I'm going to say, I find it very convenient that the camera starts rolling at the time of the infraction of the adult, but not the infraction of the student. Or the camera could have been rolling way before that, but what was sent in or what was put out there was, the adult. There's so many different variables in this, but what I will say is that directors, educators, teachers, so on and so forth. And I'm going to put this in two different ways. One, if you're dealing with chocolate folk, if you're dealing with our people, our students, our kids, Just want you to think about this. Our kids, my opinion, deserve better treatment from us. From our own. I don't think that demeaning our kids, calling them out their names, using certain languages and so on and so forth is the best way to be able to communicate with them just because that's what they hear at home. Now, absolutely. I mean, they're gonna hear it on the streets and so on and so forth. But shouldn't they see us being the best of us? That's just my thought. The other part about that is, at the end of the day, you want to keep your job. You want to keep your job. And letting or being caught doing something you ain't supposed to do is grounds for that check being stopped. And I will tell you right now, a lot of you kids now don't care if your check being stopped. They want to put you out on Front Street. So again, you want to keep your job. So you got to make the right decisions, the best decisions for you to make sure that your money is still going straight. Again, I'm open to the idea that I'm wrong. And I think I need to carry this over to Talk That Talk, and we need to get some more people in on this. And I want to hear Quan's view and Apree's view and just get some more thoughts on this. And so with that being said, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to carry this over to Real Talk That Talk. So on Wednesday, check out the live, check out Talk That Talk, and then we'll have the conversation going forward, because I think it's more to it than just the directors. And I want to be able to see what other people think and where other people's thoughts lie. All right. With that being said, man, this has been a great episode. This has been a great talk. You know, this year has been interesting. This marching year has been very interesting. And, you know, we're coming up on parade season, wind ensemble season, Mardi Gras. And so there's going to be a lot more conversation I'm going to be having, and there's a lot more things that we're going to talk about. But until then, make sure you keep it locked right here to the Passionates Network, man. Turn on notifications, like, subscribe. I appreciate all the subscribers that we've had, man. Crystal's, we had to do a rerun of Crystal's show on last week, but don't worry, because she is going to have a part 2. So I'm not worried about that. Also, Blow the Whistle. Another episode of Blow the Whistle is coming up very, very soon. We're going to be talking about the new scores that have come out in the top 5 and the way that we feel about the top 5. Also, make sure that you check out the the next episode of Talk That Talk, because we will be talking about what I just got finished talking about. Please make sure you keep it locked right here to the Passionates Network. I appreciate everybody who continues to watch us. I thank you for liking. I thank you for subscribing, and I will see you on next week.